And welcome everybody.
Wendy's breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie bundles let you create your own
Dan,
delicious
AKA
combo.
Smash muting that advertisement for your viewing pleasure. Yes, so we're looking at 24-hour videos here. That's SDO 171 angstroms. And we've got more coronal mass ejections headed Earth's direction. As many as 3 now on the way. Could be as many as 4, actually. So we'll keep you apprised of that here. And that's today. And so the first one is sort of out of the southern hemisphere. And there may be a second also on the way. It's the Mimi filament. We'll just call it the Mimi filament. I believe that viewer prefers to keep that viewer's identity private. Anyway, we name filaments after living people on the channel, so feel free to join us over on x.com/Smashomash. Name solar filaments after your friends, your foes, or perhaps even yourself. Let's briefly take a look at volcanoes, and it's called Garaloy. Yeah, the Garaloy volcano in the Aleutian Islands has been downgraded from yellow to green, so that's not a super exciting update, is it? But it's still a totally sweet imagery, so it is totally sweet imagery, so we included it. An image of the caldera at Garaloy. So as far as what else is erupting, Subinosejima is also Merapi, 18,000-foot ash plume over Merapi. Popocatépetl erupting to 22,000 feet as it explodes. Fuego, Sangay, Revenador, and Sabancaya also on the list. Next, seismic activity, a brief update, and we see some activity around the Philippines here, so we could be fixing for a large quake. That's the past 90 days. And here's the latest quake of a 5 and greater magnitude off the coast of Philippines there. Could be fixing for a larger quake. That was a 5.1, the most recent on the list. Also, there was a China quake earlier this morning at 0:09. So there's a location of that one north of India. That China quake was a 5.1 magnitude at 9 minutes after zero hour. 9 minutes into the day today. Then Tonga had a 5.1. That was 17 hours later. 17 hours and 8 minutes, that is. And then the unrest picks up. Solomon Islands had a 5.0, and then Philippines had a 5.1, and then another 5.1. So we could be seeing foreshocks there to a larger event. Please keep in mind, folks, any earthquake can be a foreshock. Moving right along to our... Well, let's allow me to... There we go. 10.7 centimeter radio flux is currently at 140 solar flux, 136. So another downtick in the radio flux here. Current number is 136. It's the black line. The red line is the sunspot number. And the blue line is the AP index. So Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard here, not forecasting any geomagnetic storms or geomagnetic unrest conditions. However, we just saw a weird alert just when I was about to produce the video, suggesting we're going to see a geomagnetic storm. So maybe some of the CMEs this channel has forecasted are about to arrive. Who would have thunk it? Well, I guess anybody that watches our daily space weather videos. Just the world's most comprehensive and most detailed solar imagery. So here are the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. And so far, no geomagnetic storm conditions showing up. No changes in the solar wind at all. So I'm not sure what's up with it. But there are some CMEs on the way. See our previous daily space weather videos for additional details about that. So that's the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. And it's geomagnetically calm in space and on the ground, which is what this is depicting. 4 hours of ground magnetic perturbations. And, things are geomagnetically quiet. The likelihood of major auroral activity is quite low indeed. So, moving right along to our KP index. KP index currently at 0.33. So, again, very geomagnetically calm conditions. And let's take a look at solar wind. So, ACE is showing slow and low solar wind here, below 400 kilometers per second and below 1 proton per cubic centimeter for the density. At the Discover, the velocity is just over 400 kilometers a second, and the density is about 5 times it is at ACE. So Discover showing about 5 protons per cubic centimeter. I don't see anything indicating space weather is going to go into geomagnetic storm conditions there, so not sure what the alerts were about, but we ain't seeing the same thing. Next are GOES magnetometers. There we are, seeing a little bit of a spike happening there around noontime local time for the GOES 18, which is what is depicted here in that blue line. That's the GOES 18. Noon local time is that N. Those satellites are geosynchronous near equatorial satellites. They orbit in the outer portion of the outer Van Allen belt at like 23,500 miles of altitude. Next is our top view ecliptic plane field plot. And has Earth snapped into a North Pole current sheet? Well, it looks like the current sheet is upon us as we are moving into a North Pole-oriented magnetic sector. So if we bring up the last image here, in all likelihood, Earth is already in that North Pole-oriented magnetic sector shown there in green. Keep in mind that data is already an hour and 33 minutes old. Next is our line of sight field plot. And yeah, welcome to the South Pole magnetic sector, folks. That's solar magnetism in multiple forms. Next is our line of sight coronal hole plot. And what the heck? Oh, North Pole sector. I'm sorry. Yeah, North Pole magnetic sector. That makes more sense as we've got North Pole coronal holes rotating in. I apologize. That was my mistake. North Pole magnetic sector has now arrived. So, yep, that's what's going on. And let's take a look at coronal holes. What the heck happened there? Jeez, oh whiz, oh my god. Dear god. Next, we've got energetic particles and solar flares, and there's nothing going on there with solar proton flux, so no solar energetic particle events of note. GOES X-ray flux here dipping way down into the B-class range, folks. Only a B5.5 is the background flux. B5.5 approximately is the background flux, and no major events, only C-class intensifications over the past 24 hours. Moving on to our 94 angstroms wavelength. There is another 24-hour video from Solar Dynamics Observatory. The most active sunspot region, well, it's on the western limb, exactly where our regular viewers would probably expect it to be. So we'll get to coronal mass ejections here in just a moment. First, let's take a look at a star chart. So our star chart is next, and there it is. That's what's going on overhead Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Let me press now. There we go. The sun is just setting here, just peeking below the horizon in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. If you want to make your own star chart, head to skyandtelescope.org. You've got Jupiter and Mercury up there at the moment. And next is our solar system forecast. We'd like to show a solar system forecast because people think planets are going to do a thing when it comes to space weather. So just to, help reinforce or unenforce their beliefs about whatever it is they're believing, here's what's going on with planets at the moment. There are things today, and there are things in 1 week. That is March 13th, 2024. Next, our astronomy photo of the day, and it's M102, one of the Messier objects. Of course, Messier was interested in taking imagery of what he called dusty nebulae. At the time, he didn't realize that these were galaxies. So there's a great edge-on galactic disk. It's basically got that cigar shape that you may have expected from edge-on disk galaxies. Again, of course, they did not know that those were galaxies at the time. Those were just dusty nebulae. So, Messier number 102 is also known as nothing. The Spindle Galaxy. Yes, the Spindle Galaxy. apod.nasa.gov is where to get the full-res image if you like. And it's pretty high-res, pretty sweet. It is from the Hubble Space Telescope. M102, entry number 102 in Messier's catalog. Continuing on to CMEs. Those are kind of important, and we've got at least one more earthly directed component. So today one came out of the south. You'll see it right at the beginning of the video. And then a second one out of the west. That second one out of the west may also have an earthly directed component. We're going to do some further analysis of it here in a minute. Those are 77 frames from today from George Mason University. So here are LASCO C2 and C3, and there you can see that southern CME happening. Let's get in a little bit closer here for that. So there's that one out of the west. The one in the south was earlier this morning. So let's just bring that back briefly. So there's that southern CME. Again, it was quite early this morning, just around midnight time when that started appearing on the coronagraphs. So there it is. And that one does have earthly directed components, a significant earthly directed component. That one might cause some significant geomagnetic storms, although most of the plasma will miss to the south. So there you go, 142. You can see that popping off there on the C3. Actually showing up there even before midnight. That one already coming out of the coronagraph around 9:30 Universal Time, 9:30 p.m. Universal Time there. So that one, again, that does have earthly directed components. So that one might cause some geomagnetic storm conditions sometime after midday on March 9th. We'll also take a look at stereo A briefly here, as that tends to help. So stereo A, and there's some missing data there, but you can see the tail end of that on the difference imagery. What about the raw coronagraph? Yep, same thing, missing data. So that's earthly directed. That's a done deal. This other one out of the west, that one's a little tougher to tell. So we'll use our custom coronagraphs for that, as we do, as we're known to do. So there we go. There are our 24-hour coronagraphs. So the one out of the south definitely has earthly directed components. The one out of the west, you're going to see one perhaps right in here. You'll see a brightening, a little solar flare happening there. That one, I would say, is not going to have earthly directed components. Let's look a little bit closer here. Again, watching the southwest, which would be the lower right of the solar disk. You'll see a brightening there just to the left of our Earth scale, the lower portion of it. And we do not anticipate that to be earthly directed. So there is a secondary event happening there. I think that was just a coincidental event there. I don't think that was a giant plasma filament. Here we've added the 193 angstrom 60-minute running difference imagery and subtracted the LASCO C3, the blue coronagraph imagery. Again, right down here you'll see a significant CME. I doubt that one has an earthly directed component. However, this one coming out of the south is earthly directed. So it's basically right at the beginning of the video. You can only see the tail end of it right down here. But that one looks like it's diffused plenty to be striking Earth. So yeah, that one's on the way, period. Them's the facts. And let's move on to filaments. Facts and filaments. We cover it. So check it out. This filament down here is looking like it's getting increasingly unstable. That's the Mimi filament. So fingers crossed that that one blasts off. Maybe that will cause some sweet mid-latitude aurorae. And some massive filaments here south of this sunspot group. Let's bring up the last image here for once and take a quick count of filaments. So we'll ignore the prominentary features. We do have a bunch of prominences here at the North Pole, the Northeast, Southeast, Northwest, Southwest, and the West Equatorial region. We're going to ignore all the prominences and only look at filaments that are overlapping the solar disk. So what do we have? So first of all, the Mimi filament is looking unstable, so that's 1. You've got 2, we'll say 3, and then 4, and then at least 5 filaments on the Earth side of the disk that are worthy of counting. Let's move on to the last couple of hours here. So a little bit of CME activity happening there in the west. No big deal. And here come bonus features. Satellite charging hazards are first. We don't have any. It's smooth sailing for satellites. Electron flux is next. It's still low. These are bonus space weather features. The electron flux is measured by radiography using the GOES 16 and GOES 18's measurements from their geosynchronous near equatorial orbits. Next is our, that's just a 1-year graph of the electron flux. We showed you the 3-day. We showed you the 1 year to contextualize the 3-day chart. Back to low levels here. Next is our forecast model, and you can see NOAA's expecting a pretty significant uptick here at the next update point. It looks like that's going to be incorrect, but stay tuned for the update. You'll be able to find out there at the Space Weather Prediction Center. Next, we'll show the layer where it's measured. That's the F layer. There it is, showing you what the F layer is over there on the right, the red F. So here's our ionosonde, and things are quiet. Quiet, geomagnetically speaking. Here's our anomalygram, anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. Again, quiet conditions. So again, also we do have multiple CMEs likely on the way to strike Earth. See our previous daily space weather videos for more details on that. But again, one likely to arrive here sometime after midday on the 9th of March. The 9th of March, CME about to arrive. So, next is our Global Ionosphere Nowcast. The whole atmosphere model, showing total electron content and maximum usable high-frequency radio. So that's what's going on, and we'll close out the space weather section of this video with the latest high-res images. Again, these sunspots not super complex. I mean, this one here does show some signs of magnetic complexity there. Not too bad, not too bad. That is a beta gamma class sunspot group. Is it beta gamma delta? It doesn't jump out at me as beta gamma delta, but we do have some close-up fields there to each other. It's certainly beta gamma. It's borderline for beta gamma delta. So it does have some significant magnetic fields. It could produce some significant solar flares. Here's the full disk view. And let's move to meteorology. So the first thing we'll cover is clouds and fog on a global basis. So starting with the eastern world, there are the surface winds of the east, clouds and fog. Surface winds and jet streams. There are the surface winds of the east. There are the jet streams. The jet streams of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, represented by the 250 hectopascal winds, 250 hectopascals. Next is our surface winds. Central world, surface winds of the west, jet streams of the west. And what has occurred? What the heck? There we go. Next, satellite imagery of the west. As spring approaches, we'll be switching to satellite imagery for these videos because it'll be light out. So, of course, that'll be an hour behind starting next week as our clocks change. A welcome thing pre-spring. Only a couple weeks from spring, folks. The equinox is coming. Next, our precipitation type. And this nor'easter that's showing up is all rain. All rain. On the other side of the country, western Rockies, northwestern Rockies, and points west are mostly snow. California coast getting a bunch of extra rain there. Precipitation type from windy.com. Here's our weather.gov map, and we've got a bunch of flooding forecasted for the northeast. So we've scrolled down to show you the key. A lot of weather warnings there in Hawaii as well. If your location is lit, click it at weather.gov. Weather.gov, the homepage of the National Weather Service. And here come our forecast. GFS 72-hour pressure and precipitation is first. Pressure and precipitation map shows you the mean sea level pressure and the precipitation. It's the GFS 72-hour model. We've got some heavy weather here coming to the Gulf Coast. It's going to move through Louisiana and the Gulf states and then kind of move out to sea while a second system forms behind it, moving up to the northeast. Meanwhile, the Pacific Northwest, you're going to see some extremely moist weather and some more moisture headed to California, as if it's not moist enough in California. Yowzers! Next is our accumulated precipitation forecast, the total accumulated precipitation forecast in inches. There you go. And heaviest rains coming to Washington and the Gulf states. Some areas there expecting over 3 inches of rain for the next 3 days. An inch a day is pretty much rain. Next, our jet stream forecast. And we've got a huge kink in the jet stream right now, just moving past the northeastern part of the country. And then we're going to have a bit of a consolidation here with a huge kink north of Montana forming in the coming days. That's a 72-hour, 250 millibar wind forecast. The 250 millibar winds are the jet stream. Last but not least, temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius, and eastern part of the country mostly above normal, western part of the country mostly below normal. So big temperature variations coming to North Dakota and Montana. But anyway, there's the map. That is in degrees Celsius, so keep that in mind when viewing said map. Yaz. Yaz indeed. A yaz in need is a yaz indeed. So there's lightning, and it's looking pretty chill here. Do we have any terrestrial strikes in the U.S.? Doesn't look like it, but quite a bit of lightning off the coast there north of the Bahamas. Lightningmaps.org is where to go next time you hear thunder. You can convince the natives that you're Zeus or Thor or something, and perhaps frighten them by acting like you caused the lightning. That could be fun, right? And let's close out the video with the latest. As this low moves into Virginia, it's moving from North Carolina to Virginia here, just north of Greensboro. At the moment, that is our U.S. Doppler radar map. We'll briefly zoom out to show the full 50 states. And then we'll focus on the lower 48. So that's Doppler radar. It depicts vertical motion in the air column. This is satellite imagery. It depicts visible satellite, like if you were on the satellite taking a photograph. And last but not least, water vapor. And like I said, that low is making its way into Virginia as we make the video. As you can see now, it is kind of a weak low, as it is mostly surrounded by dry mass of air. That does not serve to strengthen lows, as it is not as convectively active as moist air. Keep in mind, folks, moist air is less massive than dry air at a given temperature and pressure. So here is our U.S. Doppler radar map. Once again, for a recap, here is our satellite map. And when your Doppler and satellite aren't clear, perhaps the water vapor will clear things up for you. And here's me signing off. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. And until next time, I'll have been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back. Also, don't forget to Mansa. Make America not suck again. Whoa!